Hey y'all, welcome to the Good Code Podcast, where broken processes become brilliant experiences. I'm your host, Will Hudson, and today we're bringing you a story that sits at the intersection of technology, public service, and deep personal connection. Our guest today is someone who not only disrupts systems, but codes change. Matt Fraser, the CTO of New York City, he's not only leading digital transformation from the top, but he's doing it from the very city that raised him. Today we're going to go beyond the buzzwords, and we want to understand why this work matters so much to him. What drives someone to modernize government from the inside out, and how do you stay rooted in community while scaling to serve 8.5 million people? So Matt, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you letting me come in and crash in your city. You know, it's always a pleasure being around you.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so you know, one of the things that I really wanted to just dive into is I know you're bombarded by people every day. You're bombarded by, you know, somebody trying to come to you. There's 1,000 things happening today. You know, I've heard you talk about your love for New York. I've heard you talk about just the tremendous work that you're doing and really looking at New York City comparative to one being its own country, simply by the size of its economic engine and the size of its population. So, but before we dive into all the tech stuff and some of the things that you're doing to really transform the city that raised you, I really want to just start off with, who are you? I want to know the personal story. I want to know, you're the CTO of New York City, but you're a New Yorker through and through.
Yeah.
And so I want to just know about your roots. What drives you? What inspires you? And what kind of got you on the path to where you're at?
So that's a very good question, a good way to start. I'm a kid born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My parents immigrated here when they were kids from Guyana, South America. My dad went to Howard University, then came and worked at the MTA. My mom went to school here locally in New York, and they eventually met as adults. They had kids, and here I come. I think what makes me me is I come from a household that's full of like love, care, and support. And I think that that's guided my career for a long part of the journey. My dad was in public service. I have uncles that were in public service, some that served in the military. And I think for me, helping people has always been at the intersection between drive and purpose. And it's like somewhere in the center there, it's like, it's the thing that personally brings the most fulfillment to me. So when I started, you know, my career, I didn't think that I'd be in government this long. I thought this was one of those things where you make a pit stop, almost like, you know, if you look at life like F1, you pull into the service lane, they change the tires, and like government was one of those stops. Get some new tires, get some skills, move on, and then I'd move out into the private sector. And one of the things that I found working in government is that government isn't just one thing, it's a bunch of different things. Every day can be a different experience, and it really can fulfill you in ways that you can't imagine. So this kid that was born in this city, that went to school in this city, that learned how to be a person and an adult, and that was fully immersed in the culture of New York City, having the capability to sit in the seat where you can affect change and bring a higher quality of life and better support and services to people that live in the city. It's one of those things, it's like the real American dream. You have two parents that immigrate for another country, and this first generation American, their child now has risen to be a leader in the city that they came to find the American dream. So what's a better story than that?
Yeah, so, you know, that's real powerful. You know, I got my own lived experience story. I came into government because I wanted to effectuate change. You know, I came into government because I was the child that was receiving the SNAP benefit and the WIC benefit, but I also was the kid whose parents got tired of the processes of the system, that they decided to just go without the service.
Yeah.
Because it was so, one, dehumanizing, and it was so process, labor, and administrative intensive, to where they were spending more time trying to get a benefit, losing money from not being in a job while they're waiting to get a benefit.
Yeah.
And so there were days that we went without, and my parents decided to each go get another job. I had a dad that worked 3 jobs, had a mom that worked 2 jobs.
Wow.
And to hear someone with that lived experience like yourself, who's bringing it to the table to order to change government from the inside out, I think it's a very powerful thing. And I think it brings a perspective to the table that a lot of people I don't think have.
Yeah.
And so as you're bringing that lived experience to the table, and it sounds like it's what's grounding you in your job, as you take your steps into this role as CTO, what vision did you walk into the agency with, and what do you actually want to change?
Yeah, so I'd say what I walked in. So when Mayor Adams got elected in 2021, and we step in January of 2022, when I step in and I take the top seat for tech in New York City, one of the things that I look at is not what technology is and what technology can do to serve the government exclusively, but what it can do to serve the people and how can we serve people better. If you look at how the rest of the world has evolved and how technologies have evolved to serve industries, whether that's the financial industries, whether that's transportation. I mean, over the last decade, look at what Lyft has done, Lyft and Uber has done to transform the transportation industry. Like these days, being able to hail a cab, back when I was a kid, you had to pick up a phone, call a number, give an address, get a cab to come meet you there and take you to a destination, and all of that you had to figure out in a fairly analog way. Now today, the transportation industry has been modernized. Now from your phone, you can pick a place, call a cab and go somewhere, and not just for you, for anyone, anywhere across the globe where they service. So for me, I think government's evolved and we provide a lot of good services, but we haven't evolved at the same rate that the rest of the world has evolved and adapted to use technology. So when I came in, one of the things that I looked at is like, let's figure out what the most thorny issues are, and let's look at the ones that can affect the most people in the most positive way, and let's chase those, and if along the way, look at other opportunities to revolutionize government in a smart way. So one of the things that I looked at when I came in, and it was hard to miss, we step in January 22 and we look at broadband access, the digital divide. We look at what the city's been doing and what we're positioned to do in that space. And one of the reasons why we looked there is because, I part of my team had focused on doing that over the previous administration for the last couple of years. And when I inherited them, I said they had a program called the Internet Master Plan. The program had $157 million in it, and the money had been given 2 years prior to me stepping into the role, and not a single connection had been delivered to a single New Yorker. And they were sitting on $157 million to do that. Now, the interesting thing about that is that seems like it's broken, but if you look at below the surface, what's really broken was during that period, how poorly we served the people of the city. And like the thing that you look at is like, think about 2020 and 2021. As we sit here now, it seems like that was a long time ago, but during that period, something shifted the way the world looked at connectivity forever, and that was COVID. In an instant, we had this global pandemic. We were trying to figure out what was going on and how we could best keep population alive. How could we serve people? And as a result, for everyone's safety, the vast majority of people were sent home so that either they can continue their education from home, they could perform their job to the degree that they could from home, and to limit their exposure to a new virus that we were fighting. And in that process, we sent thousands of kids home. And in New York City public housing, when we got into the statistic, was like over 40% of those that lived in public housing didn't have access to internet. And the more alarming fact is the areas where a lot of these developments were positioned are also areas that had high concentrations of gun violence. And what's even more concerning is that the kids that were perpetrating those acts were kids between the ages of 12 and 17. So if you take a step back and you look at the reason why I say like this is one of those things that we fail to serve people, is that imagine being a kid that's been sent home from school, You've been given a tablet, but you've been given no way to use that tablet. And now you're sitting at home with a device. All your friends that have access to means, that have access to connectivity, have the same device, but their experience at home is different. They can now connect online. They can use tools like FaceTime, or they can use tools like tools like WhatsApp to communicate with each other. They can play games like Roblox, and that social connectivity can be maintained. And more than that, when it's time to do schoolwork, that education process continues, because now, although you may not be in the classroom, the process is a little bit different, but you can still have a part of that interaction virtually. But for the kids that don't have access, they go home with a tablet, and now they're socially disconnected. They now don't have a capability to carry on the learning experience. And like the bigger challenge with that is they lose social peership. So flash forward 2 years, you go from 2020 to 2021 to 2022 when we step in. The world is returning back to normal. Kids are returning back to the classroom. But now those same kids that are coming back, they are not operating at the same level as their peers that were connected. Those social bonds and ties that they had are now broken because they were disconnected from their peers and they couldn't communicate. And what happens in periods like that is, like, sometimes kids get frustrated, sometimes they find themselves in groups that don't make the best decisions, and then all of a sudden they're wrapped into this circle where they fall into a stream that seldomly does someone reach in to pull them out of.
Absolutely.
So for me, I look at it and I go, well, if we've got this massive portion of the population that needs to be served, if we have this money set aside to do it, if we had this global pandemic that showed the necessary need to have that level of connectivity, why haven't we done something about it? So what I decided to do is pull the team together in my office. I'm like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. I need, within the next 30 days, a plan that's gonna address this in a meaningful way. And 30 days comes by, we have a conversation, and everyone is giving me sort of their approach at how they wanted to solve the challenge. We're gonna call in cable providers, they're gonna put fiber in the ground, we're gonna connect these buildings, and 5 years later we can deliver a connection. And I said, let's talk about the cost of inaction. Every day you don't do something, it's a tangible impact, a real impact to a New Yorker. So in those 5 years, how many more kids will be left behind? In those 5 years, how many kids will be more socially dejected? In those 5 years, how many people will fall into that river and that we won't have the ability to pull them out? So what I decided to do is I said, you know what? I've got an idea. We're gonna call in all of the major cable providers in New York City. So in New York, we have 3 major providers. We have Altice, Charter Communications, and Verizon. We call all 3 providers into a room, and we say, you have connectivity. We have a massive part of the population that needs it, and they need it now. What do we need to do, or how can we partner together to deliver that access? And after some conversation, from that initial meeting, walking out of there, within 2 months, within 2 months, we roll out a program called Big Apple Connect. And Big Apple Connect, within a year of being launched, is a program that provides free internet and free basic TV to all of New York City's public housing.
Wow.
Over 300,000 people now have access to a critical resource. The way I view connectivity, it's like the digital equivalent of like water. And if you know that old parable, like you give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. You teach them how to fish, they can eat for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, connectivity is like access to water. A device is like a fishing rod. And the skills training that you need can teach them how to use that so they can feed themselves for the rest of their lives. So for us, sitting in the seat, for me sitting in the seat, in the top seat, in less than a year, and being able to fundamentally change how people not just experience public housing, but how they experience a quality of life in New York City, and doing that not just for a moment in time, but changing that in perpetuity, like what more fulfilling thing is that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So as you're talking, one of the things that I'm picking up on is I had an opportunity to chat with you some months ago in Salt Lake City, and one of the things that I picked up on was something that you said, and it's just stuck with me. And I think about it all the time.
Hopefully it was good.
It was great. It was fantastic. I think about it all the time because I even have to go back and reflect on my 12 years of government service from where I'm from. And it is something that, had I heard in those 12 years, I probably would have changed my approach to how I executed on work or how I thought about solving a problem. And the one thing that you said is that technology should meet people where they are, not make them come to it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a radical shift in how government has traditionally operated. And what I want to know is, how do you bring that philosophy in to your day-to-day work and then get the team to rally around that as well? Because we all know in government, we got our lifers that have been in there who say, I've been doing it this way for so many years, don't rock my boat, don't change it. And they're kind of stuck in this way of thinking.
Yeah.
And with that philosophy and just that phrase that you said got me to even thinking, and still keeps me thinking today, about how I show up to provide service, as opposed to, that there's a problem like you identified with broadband. But a lot of times we tend to, in government, wait for people to come to us and ask for something that we know that they need.
Yeah.
And so,
I think part of the reason why I look at the world that way is because I spent a decent amount of my career in public safety space at the NYPD. And one of the things that you learn very quickly on the law enforcement side of the world is that minutes matter, seconds matter. And if you don't get the right information to the right person, if you don't answer the right phone call, if you don't code the job exactly right, you put yourself in a position where that small indiscretion can put you in a place where you put someone's life in jeopardy. So that cost of inaction, and knowing that decisions that you make impact people's lives in a material way, that fundamentally shifted how I look at every experience that I have. Mm-hmm. Now that's well beyond just like the government experience, but that's the life experience. So for me, when I say you got to bring technology to meet people where they are and not have them come to find the technology, that means that you can build the best product in the world, but if no one knows how to access it, or they can't access it, it's not going to serve anyone. So for me, when I look at programs, when I look at systems that we can launch or initiatives that we can take on, the first question that I typically have is, who's going to use it and how? Mm-hmm. Right? How's this going to make a difference? And who's going to use it? And if the audience isn't clear, if the access, how they're going to access it isn't clear, and if the impact that it's going to have isn't clear, then it usually means that we're heading in the wrong direction. So one of the things that I've always been a big believer in is you can't innovate for innovation's sake. You can't innovate you can't do program design or project design based on ego. You've got to do it based on purpose.
Yeah.
And so what's the purpose? What are we building towards? And why are we building it? So every day I walk in the office, every time I have a meeting with my team, one of the things that I look at is, who are we serving, and what's the timeline on which we're going to serve them, and can we do it any faster? And I think that largely I'm successful at moving the needle in the right direction. But with that level of purpose and this level of responsibility, there's one question that haunts me most nights, and it's the question that you ask yourself is, what if I'm not good enough? What if the person that sits in the top seat is not making the right decision every day to help the most people? What if you're not good enough? And who are you impacting along the way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, you think about a city like New York City, which is called the city that doesn't sleep.
Oh yeah, we don't.
It's a city that's always being watched globally. It's a city that's always being critiqued. And with that statement that you just made about, that self-reflection moment, but also thinking about if something's going to happen, everybody always looks and says, what's happening in New York City?
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself grounded
So
in those hard moments like that?
whenever I think of moments like this, I think of, guidance I've received throughout my life, right? And whenever I find myself in a moment where I'm looking at the gravity that comes with being the CTO of New York City, or what it means to represent New York City in any way, shape, or form, or just what New York City means to not just the U.S., but to the global landscape, I'm reminded of something that my late Uncle Ben told me. He said, Matt, with great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not my Uncle Ben. That's Uncle Ben for Peter Parker and Spider-Man, right? But the impact is still the same, right? See, I'm a nerd at heart, but the impact is still the same. It's like with great power comes great responsibility. You can't be the financial power of the world. You can't be the beacon of freedom in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be, the epicenter of cultural diversity in the world and not expect everyone to watch. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that means is that the decisions that you make and how you look at taking on every initiative has to be done in the most meaningful way to ensure that whenever you make a decision and wherever you take a single dollar and you invest it, that you don't put it in a place that as the global landscape closes in and looks at New York City, they don't look at it and go, well, we don't understand what that means. Mm-hmm. And the bigger thing is that for the people that you serve, investing in things that doesn't further their quality of life or their experience in New York City. So I'd say the way I keep myself grounded is just by understanding that in the role that I sit in, it's not about me and it's not about me, it's not about legacy, it's not about ego. It's about helping people. Mm-hmm. And if you keep yourself grounded on helping people and you keep yourself directed and guided by doing the right thing, right? Not the easy thing. Mm-hmm. I think you're always going to be in a place where you come out on the right side or you come out on the better side of any decision that's right in front of you. And for me, that's pretty much it. Just grounding myself on the decisions that you make will impact people. You're responsible to impact millions of New Yorkers, and making sure the decisions that I make are just surrounded by those guiding principles.
Yeah. So I would ask you, in everything that we've discussed, everything that we've talked about, if you were able to have a conversation with your younger self, is there anything that you would tell yourself in regards to where you are now? And if you were able to talk to the youth of New York City, especially a lot of those youth who don't see themselves being able to be in a role such as yours,
yeah,
what would you tell them?
I mean, talking to my younger self, I would probably tell my younger self, stay away from some of those programs that gave my computer viruses, like LimeWire and stuff like that back in the day. You know what I mean?
What was one? Napster?
Yeah.
Napster?
Napster, LimeWire. Like, stay away from that stuff. Yeah. What I tell my younger self is that it gets better.
Yeah.
Right? I've never been, I was always a decent kid. I wasn't the best. I wasn't the worst. But also, if you'd ask my younger self, where would you be? I wouldn't know that I'd tell you that I'd be right here, right now, doing any of this. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be the case. And I'm sure if you asked my parents at the time, they'd be like, well, that's a good question. What is he going to be in life? And what it says is it gets better. I'm living proof that you don't have to make, you don't have to be the person that makes the right decision every time. And you don't have to be the person that comes out being the straight A student that that has, a stellar academic performance all the way throughout life to be the person in the top seat. I'm the person that shows you through grit, hard work, and determination, anything is possible. And a lot of my success comes from being able to endure and to grind when everyone else is turning off and going to sleep. A lot of my success comes from, when I go back to my early days in my career and some of the things that I've done, it's like I've always been willing to take on the programs and the challenges that no one else wanted to take on. I've always been in a space where even if I didn't know how something necessarily worked, I'd be willing to take the risk and say, yeah, I'll do it, and figure it out along the way. And more importantly than all of that, I've always been driven by wanting to be the best, right, at whatever it is that I was doing. And when it comes to, when it came to work, and when it came to the stuff that I worked on throughout my career, whether it was working in the public safety space and looking at how we could help impact crime patterns in New York City, whether it was working at the Department of Buildings to make the city landscape more safe, whether it was working at the Mayor's Office of Housing Recovery, helping people that were displaced due to Superstorm Sandy and getting them back into homes. At every step of the way, whatever it is that I put my hands on, I wanted to make sure that I was the best at it, and that I took on any challenges without backing down. So through grit and determination, you can get anything that you want. And that's whether that means being the CTO of New York City, or whether that means starting your own company, or whether that means doing something completely different. You got to have faith in yourself and be willing to endure and battle through. I'll tell you a cool story. There's a couple of people in the world that you get inspiration from, and I'm a tech guy, so I'll give you a couple of those people. So you've got people like David Stewart. David Stewart is the CEO and founder of Worldwide Technology. At this moment, he is the richest. He's the richest African American in the United States. He's currently worth, I think, something like 12 or 13 billion, right? And he's a name that many people don't know.
Right.
So David Stewart, he's from Missouri. He grew up in a household that was at the poverty line, and he rose through all that to start a company, and that company he started led him on his path to being the richest black man in America. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Right? Another gentleman that you might know, a gentleman by the name of Michael Dell. Michael Dell started upgrading computers in his college dorm room, and then from upgrading computers, he went to creating his own computers, to creating his own chips, to creating a technology company, and now he's one of the most wealthy people in the world. And all these people, the way that they've done it is through grit and determination. They had a vision, they had a dream, and they've moved mountains to make that happen. Even if you take a look at a guy like Jeff Bezos, like the Amazon story is just such an interesting one. Like for him to start Amazon and to go to a group of investors and say, for the first 10 years, my company isn't going to make any money. But when it starts making money, I'm going to not only be the best online retailer in books, but I'm going to be the best online retailer, period. And he goes from that to launching one of the most profitable companies in human history. So I'd say all that to say, it's like, if you look at everyone that's involved in this space, and everyone that's gotten to the top of the top, hard work, Floyd Mayweather says it too, hard work, dedication. Hard work, dedication, and a lot of grit is gonna get you to wherever you wanna be.
Absolutely. So, before we kind of wrap up, I got few personal questions I want to ask you.
Yeah, sure, shoot.
And I think I kind of know the answer to some of these already, but I'm just going to try it anyway. Favorite and the best NYC borough?
Brooklyn. What do you mean by that? Well, favorite and the best NYC boroughs? Brooklyn. And in the words of the Notorious B.I.G., spreading love is the Brooklyn way. You understand? Brooklyn.
I got you. Favorite hip hop song at the moment?
Favorite hip hop song at the moment?
At the moment. Somebody Loves Me. Okay.
Drake.
Favorite hip hop song of all time?
Of all time, ooh, Juicy, Notorious B.I.G.
Okay. And if there was one word to describe NYC's tech future, what would it be?
One word. Glorious.
Okay. Glorious.
Glorious.
Okay. Want to expound on that? We'll leave it right there.
Glorious. And the reason why I say glorious is because when you start from where we are right now and you look at the direction that we're heading in, the things that we'll be able to do and the ways that we'll be able to serve people by bringing services directly to them. I'll give you a cool example.
Yeah.
Just think about those that have great credit in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when they open their email or they go to their paper mail, they get a pre-approval notice that says, hey, John Smith, you're pre-approved for a credit card. Just provide us these pieces of information and we'll send you a card that's authorized for this amount within X number of days.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine being able to serve people that have historically been underserved, that are in dire needs of benefits before they know that they are eligible for certain benefits. So if I was able to take the same approach that the credit card industry uses around pre-approvals and we could do it around public benefits. Like imagine being a single mother who's lost a job, that has a kid that's filed for unemployment. But she may not know that in addition to unemployment, she's eligible for childcare. There's learning programs, there's job upskilling to get her back into the workforce. Mm-hmm. Being able to proactively give pre-approval notices and serve people that way. The reason why I say glorious is because when you start serving people before they even know they need it, and you catch people before they start to fall into the stream, it gives us the opportunity to change the systemic cycles of poverty that we have in the city. What's more glorious than that?
I couldn't agree more. I'm with you 100%. Well, I want to thank you for coming. Allow me to come into your city again.
Listen, New York City is a city of love. Everybody's welcome.
When you come down to Texas, we show you some love.
Hey, listen, I love Texas.
Say, and you learned something last time you came.
Yeah, never leave Houston on a Sunday.
That part.
Yeah.
So, man, I just want to thank you again. I know it's been a hectic day for you. And if we're looking out the 88th floor of the World Trade Center, from the office of our host, Hyperscience, we can see that it's dark outside. And as much of a long day as you had today, you still found time to come out and have a conversation, and it is deeply appreciated.
Man, I'm happy to be here. And you would say dark. I would say the street lights are on, so it's still bright in New York City.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us here on the Good Code Podcast. Hey, y'all, I'm your host, Will Hudson, the wonderful Chief Technology Officer of New York City. And what you say, Brooklyn? Brooklyn, not Bronx.
Brooklyn. Those of us that are from Brooklyn, right? When you say the Bronx, that's a long ways away.
Gotcha.
That's almost like going upstate. It's a long ways from Brooklyn.
So
I love the Bronx. I'm just saying, distance-wise. Anyone that's grown up in New York City,
yeah.
If you ever see a guy from Brooklyn going to the Bronx, there's only one thing that a guy from Brooklyn is going to the Bronx to do, and it's to meet someone.
That's it.
That's it.
I got you.
There's got to be a lot of love that's going to draw you to the Bronx.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us on this episode of The Good Code. Matt, again, appreciate it. I know we got Jeff Staggy standing over there. Appreciate you. Nothing but love. Thank y'all. Talk to y'all later.
All right.